The year was 2847, and Earth had become a shadow of its former self. Once vibrant oceans were now choked with toxic algae blooms, their waters glowing faintly under the dim light of a sun partially obscured by smog. Cities that once stood tall as monuments to human ingenuity lay in ruins, crumbling beneath the weight of centuries of war and neglect. The skies above were streaked with ash from wildfires that refused to die, painting the horizon in shades of orange and gray. Humanity hadn't given up entirely, though. Scattered across the galaxy, colonies clung to life like weeds growing through cracks in concrete. These outposts, some little more than domed shelters on barren moons, others sprawling megacities built into hollowed-out asteroids, were humanity's last bastions of hope. But even they weren't safe. Alien predators prowled the void between stars, hunting ships carrying supplies or refugees. Pirate factions raided vulnerable colonies for resources, leaving death and despair in their wake. And always, there was the looming threat of environmental collapse, a reminder that no matter how far humans traveled, they couldn't escape the consequences of their own actions. It was against this backdrop of despair that Dr. Alara Voss found herself working. Late one night at the Interstellar Research Institute, or what remained of it. Located in New Geneva, one of Earth's few surviving metropolitan areas, the institute was housed in a crumbling skyscraper whose windows were taped over to keep out wind and rain. Inside, the air smelled faintly of mildew and burnt coffee, and the flickering fluorescent lights cast long shadows across the cluttered lab where Ilara spent most of her days. Ilara wasn't like the other researchers. Where many saw only ruin and failure, she saw puzzles waiting to be solved. Her specialty was xenolinguistics, the study of alien languages, and she had spent years poring over fragments of communication intercepted from distant parts of the galaxy. Tonight, however, she wasn't focused on aliens. She was staring at something far older, a signal buried deep within humanity's own archives. The signal had been discovered weeks earlier by accident. A team of data miners combing through ancient satellite transmissions stumbled upon a sequence so unusual that it defied explanation. At first glance, it appeared to be nothing more than static random noise picked up by long-dead equipment. But when analyzed further, patterns emerged. Mathematical sequences, geometric shapes, even what looked like rudimentary instructions. It was as if someone or something had deliberately embedded a message in the chaos. Ilara leaned forward, her fingers brushing against the keyboard as she adjusted the display on her monitor. On the screen was a recreation of the signal, visualized as a series of interlocking glyphs. They pulsed faintly, almost hypnotically, as if alive. She had seen similar designs before, but never anything quite like this. There was an elegance to them, a symmetry that suggested intelligence beyond mere coincidence. Her assistant, a young man named Jace, walked into the room holding 2 cups of coffee. "Still at it?" he asked, setting one cup down beside her. "You've been here for 16 hours straight. I'll sleep when we figure this out," Ilara replied without looking up. Her voice was calm but edged with determination. "This isn't just some random transmission. It's deliberate. Someone wanted us to find it?" Jace frowned, glancing at the screen. "But who? And why now? This thing's been sitting in our archives for centuries. That's the question, isn't it?" Ilara murmured. She took a sip of coffee, wincing at the bitterness. Whoever sent it knew we'd eventually have the technology to decode it. Maybe they were counting on us being desperate enough to try. Desperation was something humanity understood all too well these days. Resources were dwindling faster than anyone could replenish them, and tensions between colonies were reaching a boiling point. The Terran Alliance, the fragile governing body that oversaw humanity's scattered settlements, was on the verge of collapse. Leaders argued endlessly over rationing policies and military strategies. while ordinary people struggled just to survive another day. Word of the mysterious signal spread quickly through the Institute, drawing the attention of higher-ups. By morning, Alara's lab was flooded with officials demanding answers. Among them was Chancellor Marcus Hawley, a stern-faced politician known for his pragmatism and his willingness to do whatever it took to maintain control. "What exactly are you telling me, Doctor?" Hawley asked, his tone sharp as he studied the glyphs on Alara's monitor. "That this message is some kind of alien distress call?" "No," Alara said carefully. "Not a distress call. More like a key. Or maybe a map." Hawley raised an eyebrow. "A map to what?" "To salvation," Alara replied, choosing her words carefully. "If I'm reading this correctly, it provides coordinates for summoning something called the Black Armada, according to the text accompanying the glyphs. It's described as an unstoppable force, capable of reshaping reality itself." The room fell silent. Even Jay stopped fiddling with his tablet, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You're saying we can summon some kind of super weapon?" Hawley asked finally, his voice tinged with skepticism. "Not necessarily a weapon," Alara clarified. "The language used suggests it's more than that. It's a fleet, yes, but also something else, something incomprehensible. Think of it as a manifestation of power, not bound by conventional physics." Hawley crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. "And you trust this? What if it's a trap? What if activating it brings destruction instead of salvation?" Alara hesitated. She didn't have all the answers, and she knew better than to promise certainty. But she also knew that humanity didn't have many options left. "We don't know for sure," she admitted. "But we're running out of time. If there's even a chance this could help us, shouldn't we take it?" Hawley stared at her for a long moment before nodding curtly. "Very well. Proceed with activation. But understand this, Doctor, if this goes wrong, the blame will rest squarely on your shoulders." With that, he turned and left the room, leaving Alara and Jace alone once again. Over the next several days, the Institute mobilized every available resource to prepare for the activation. Massive arrays of satellites were repositioned to align with the coordinates provided by the signal. Engineers worked around the clock to modify transmitters capable of broadcasting the glyphs into deep space. Meanwhile, news of the project leaked to the public, sparking both hope and panic. Some hailed it as humanity's last chance for survival, while others condemned it as reckless folly. Finally, the day of activation arrived. Alara stood on a platform overlooking the main control room, her heart pounding as technicians counted down the final seconds. Jay stood beside her, gripping the railing tightly. "Are you ready for this?" he whispered. "No," Alara admitted quietly. "But I don't think any of us are." At zero, the transmitters roared to life, sending the glyphs hurtling into the void. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the sky began to darken, not with clouds, but with an unnatural shadow that seemed to swallow the stars. Gasps rippled through the crowd gathered outside, their faces illuminated by the eerie glow of handheld devices. From the darkness emerged shapes, colossal vessels so large they dwarfed entire moons. Their surfaces shimmered like liquid obsidian, reflecting no light, yet radiating an aura of immense power. As they moved closer, their forms became clearer, sleek, angular designs that defied logic, as if crafted by minds unbound by the constraints of three-dimensional space. A hush fell over humanity as the fleet came to a halt, hovering silently above Earth. Then, a single transmission echoed across every frequency. Loud and clear, "You have summoned us. Now kneel." The demand sent shockwaves through the planet. Some dropped to their knees instinctively, overwhelmed by the sheer presence of the beings aboard the ships. Others resisted, shouting defiance into the void. Among them was Chancellor Holly, who stepped forward with clenched fists and declared, "We will not bow to you." The response was immediate and devastating. A beam of energy shot down from one of the ships, striking the ground near Holly and reducing everything within a 100-meter radius to ash. When the dust settled, Holly was gone, along with dozens of others who had stood beside him. Alara watched in horror as chaos erupted around her. People screamed, fleeing in all directions as the implications sank in. Humanity had awakened something far greater than itself, and it demanded absolute submission. As the first emissaries descended from the ships, cloaked in shifting black armor, Alara realized the truth. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about identity, about whether humanity would remain free or be forever changed by forces beyond comprehension, and everything was about to change. The arrival of the Black Armada left humanity paralyzed with fear. The colossal ships hung motionless in the sky, their surfaces gleaming like polished obsidian, reflecting nothing but exuding an aura of overwhelming power. No one knew what to do next. Some people fell to their knees, praying for mercy, while others shouted defiance into the void, refusing to bow before the unknown invaders. But no matter how they reacted, everyone felt the same thing, a crushing sense of insignificance. Alara Voss stood frozen on the platform outside the Interstellar Research Institute, her mind racing as she tried to make sense of what was happening. She had spent her entire career studying alien languages and deciphering signals from distant worlds, but nothing could have prepared her for this. The beings aboard those ships weren't just aliens. They were something else entirely. Something incomprehensible. From the largest ship descended figures, cloaked in shifting black armor that seemed to ripple like liquid shadow. They moved with unnatural grace, their forms indistinct yet radiating authority. These envoys introduced themselves simply as the Eidolon, though their voices carried through every communication channel without sound, resonating directly in the minds of those who heard them. Their message was clear and unyielding. You summoned us. Now kneel. Kneeling wasn't just a physical act. It was a demand for complete submission. The Eidolon explained that they were stewards of balance across the cosmos, tasked with maintaining order among civilizations. Humanity's reckless summoning of the Black Armada had disrupted that balance, forcing the Eidolon to intervene directly. To restore harmony, humans would need to prove themselves worthy or face extinction. Chancellor Marcus Hale's defiant refusal had already cost him his life, along with countless others. His ashes still lingered in the air, a grim reminder of the price of resistance. Yet even after witnessing such destruction, not everyone was ready to comply. Resistance groups began forming almost immediately, led by survivors determined to fight back against the invaders. One such leader was Commander Arlen Rourke, a battle-scarred veteran of the interstellar wars. With his grizzled appearance and fiery temper, Rourke had always been a symbol of resilience. He gathered a group of loyal soldiers and civilians, vowing to resist the Eidolon at all costs. "They think we'll roll over and die," he barked during a makeshift rally in the ruins of New Geneva. "We didn't survive everything this galaxy threw at us just to kneel before some shiny ghosts." His words inspired many, but they also sparked division. While some rallied behind Rourke, others saw wisdom in compliance. Among them was Dr. Lila Marquez, a biologist who argued that humanity couldn't win a war against beings capable of wiping out entire cities with a single blast. "If kneeling is what it takes to survive," she said during a heated debate, "then maybe it's time we swallow our pride." As tensions grew, Alara found herself caught between these opposing forces. Her role in decoding the summoning signal made her both a hero and a target. Some blamed her for bringing the Eidolon to Earth, while others looked to her for guidance. Despite the pressure, she refused to take sides. Instead, she focused on understanding the Eidolon. hoping to find a way to negotiate or even outsmart them. Her opportunity came when the Eidolon requested a liaison, a human representative, to serve as a bridge between their species and humanity. To everyone's surprise, Alara volunteered. Many warned her against it, including Jace, her assistant, who begged her not to go. "You don't know what they'll do to you," he pleaded. "What if they're dangerous?" "They're already dangerous," Alara replied calmly. "But if we want any chance of surviving this, someone has to talk to them. And I am the only one who can." With reluctance, the remnants of the Terran Alliance agreed to let her go. Escorted by a small team of guards, Alara boarded a shuttle bound for the largest Eidolon vessel. As they approached, the scale of the ship became even more apparent. It loomed above them like a mountain, its surface smooth and featureless except for faint, pulsating veins of light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with some unseen heartbeat inside. The environment was unlike anything Alara had ever experienced. The walls shifted and shimmered, constantly changing shape as if alive. The air was thick with a strange energy that made her skin tingle. There were no visible doors or corridors, just open spaces that rearranged themselves depending on where she walked. It was disorienting, almost maddening, but she forced herself to stay focused. Her guide was an Eidolon envoy, its form concealed beneath layers of flowing black material that obscured its features. Its presence was suffocating, yet strangely calm. When it spoke, its voice echoed in her mind rather than her ears. "You are brave to come here," it said. "Few of your kind possess such courage." "I'm not brave," Alara admitted. "I'm desperate. My people are dying. We didn't mean to summon you. We were trying to save ourselves." The Eidolon paused, tilting its head slightly as if considering her words. "Desperation is no excuse," it replied. "Your actions have consequences, whether intended or not. You must understand, we are not here to destroy you, but neither are we here to save you. Our purpose is to judge." "Judge us?" Alara asked, her voice trembling. "On what basis?" "Balance," the Eidolon answered simply. "Every civilization must prove it can coexist peacefully with others. Those who fail are removed. Those who succeed may join us or continue as they are." Alara felt a chill run down her spine. Join them? What did that mean? Before she could ask, the Eidolon gestured for her to follow. They entered a vast chamber filled with floating glyphs, similar to the ones used to summon the fleet. In the center of the room hovered a massive sphere, pulsating with light, its surface covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as she watched. "This is the Nexus," the Eidolon explained. "It holds the collective knowledge of all civilizations judged by the Black Armada. Through it, we assess your worthiness." Alara stared at the sphere, awestruck. If the Eidolon truly possessed the combined wisdom of countless species, then perhaps there was hope. Maybe she could convince them that humanity deserved a second chance. Back on Earth, the situation continued to deteriorate. The Eidolon imposed strict rules on human behavior, forbidding acts of violence and demanding obedience. Those who complied began experiencing strange changes. People reported vivid dreams filled with impossible landscapes and whispers promising transcendence. Some claimed to feel stronger, smarter, or more connected to the universe. Others vanished without a trace, leaving behind only empty beds and unanswered questions. Resistance fighters like Commander Rourke grew increasingly desperate. Armed with scavenged weapons and makeshift defenses, they launched hit-and-run attacks against Eidolon patrols. But the results were always the same. Their bullets passed harmlessly through the Eidolon's constructs, which seemed immune to conventional weaponry. Each failed assault cost lives, fueling despair among the rebels. Meanwhile, Alara worked tirelessly to uncover the truth about the Eidolon. Through careful observation and analysis, she discovered unsettling facts. The Black Armada wasn't just a military force. It operated through metaphysical laws, altering time, space, and even consciousness wherever it went. Worse still, she learned that the Eidolon viewed humanity as dangerously unstable a species too, volatile to coexist peacefully with others. Her breakthrough came when she noticed subtle inconsistencies in the Eidolon's language. Certain phrases repeated themselves, hinting at deeper meanings. By piecing together fragments of their speech, she realized that the Eidolon weren't merely judges, they were creators. Every civilization judged by the Black Armada either joined its ranks or ceased to exist entirely. Those who merged with the fleet lost their individuality, becoming part of the very entity they feared. This revelation shook Alara to her core. If humanity surrendered completely, it would lose everything that made it unique. Yet resisting might doom them to annihilation. As society fractured further, she realized the Eidolon weren't here to save humanity. They were here to decide its fate, and humanity's decision would change everything. The Eidolon's judgment of humanity began in earnest, and it was unlike anything anyone had ever imagined. Instead of outright destruction or immediate demands for submission, they imposed a series of trials tests designed to determine whether humans deserved to continue existing. These trials were not fought with weapons or armies, but with minds, emotions, and willpower. They blurred the line between reality and illusion, leaving participants questioning what was real and what was fabricated by the Eidolon's influence. Commander Arlen Rourke watched helplessly as entire cities became arenas for these tests. The Eidolon transformed urban landscapes into surreal environments where civilians faced manifestations of their deepest fears, regrets, and desires. Streets twisted into endless loops, buildings stretched impossibly high into the sky, and shadows moved on their own, whispering secrets only the victim could hear. Those who failed the trials disappeared without a trace, leaving behind empty streets and unanswered questions. Rourke tried to fight back, leading guerrilla attacks against Eidolon forces during the trials. He gathered his resistance fighters, equipping them with whatever weapons they could scavenge, and launched ambushes whenever an Eidolon patrol appeared. But every attempt ended in failure. Their bullets passed harmlessly through the Eidolon's constructs, which seemed made of pure thought rather than matter. Worse still, each attack cost lives, not just among the rebels, but also innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire. It's like hitting smoke. One of Rourke's soldiers muttered after yet another failed assault. "They're not even real." "They're real enough to kill us," Rourke snapped, slamming his fist against the wall. His frustration was boiling over. For weeks, he'd been trying to find a way to hurt the invaders, but nothing worked. Every strategy, every plan, crumbled under the weight of the Eidolon's power. And now, with the trials spreading across more cities, despair was beginning to take hold. People were losing hope, and worse, some were starting to believe that resistance was pointless, while Rourke struggled to keep the rebellion alive. Alara Voss delved deeper into the mysteries of the Eidolon. Her role as liaison gave her access to parts of the Black Armada that no other human had seen, including the Nexus, the pulsating sphere at the heart of the fleet. Through careful observation and analysis, she uncovered fragments of the Eidolon's history, piecing together their origins and purpose. What she learned terrified her. The Black Armada wasn't just a tool of judgment. It was a living entity, composed of countless merged consciousnesses. Each civilization judged by the fleet either joined its ranks or ceased to exist entirely. Those who submitted lost their individuality, becoming part of the collective mind that powered the Armada. Those who resisted were erased from existence, their memories and achievements wiped clean as if they had never been. Alara shared her findings cautiously, knowing that revealing too much could spark panic or, worse, blind obedience. She confided in Jace, her assistant, during one of their rare moments alone. "It's not about saving us," she whispered, her voice trembling. It's about absorbing us. If we surrender completely, we'll lose everything that makes us human. Jay stared at her, his face pale. Then we can't let that happen. But how do we stop it? Alara asked, her voice rising despite herself. We can't fight them. We've tried, and look where it got us. They're not just powerful, they're beyond our understanding. We have to try something, Jace insisted. Even if it's crazy. Alara didn't respond. She knew he was right, but the weight of the problem felt insurmountable. As days turned into weeks, she threw herself into her work, searching for any weakness in the Eidolon system. Her efforts paid off when she discovered something unusual. The glyphs used to summon the Black Armada weren't just coordinates, they were instructions. Hidden within their patterns were clues about how the fleet operated, including potential vulnerabilities. Her breakthrough came during a meeting with her Eidolon overseer, a being known only as the Obsidian Sovereign. Unlike the envoys she had encountered before, the Sovereign radiated an almost overwhelming presence, its form shifting constantly as if unable to settle on a single shape. When it spoke, its voice resonated not just in her mind, but in her very bones. You seek answers, the Sovereign said, tilting its head slightly. It wasn't a question. I want to understand, Alara replied, forcing herself to remain calm. Why are you doing this? What gives you the right to decide our fate? The Sovereign paused, as if considering her words. Your kind is volatile, it finally answered. You destroy yourselves and others without thought. Balance must be maintained. Without it, chaos spreads. But balance doesn't mean erasing us, Alara countered. There has to be another way. There is none, the Sovereign replied coldly. Your survival depends on proving your worth. Fail, and you will join the void. Succeed, and you may transcend. Alara felt a chill run down her spine. Transcendence sounded tempting, but at what cost? Would humanity truly survive if it became part of the Black Armada, or would it simply cease to exist as a distinct species? As the trials intensified, society fractured further. Those who complied with the Eidolon began exhibiting strange changes. Some claimed to feel stronger, smarter, or more connected to the universe, while others reported vivid dreams filled with impossible landscapes and whispers promising enlightenment. A growing number vanished without explanation, leaving behind loved ones who mourned their loss or envied their transformation. Resistance. Leaders like Rourke saw these changes as proof that the Eidolon were corrupting humanity, stripping away its flaws and replacing them with something alien. They're turning us into slaves, he declared during a secret meeting with his followers. If we don't stop them, there won't be any of us left. But not everyone agreed. Some argued that the Eidolon offered salvation, a chance to rise above humanity's limitations and achieve greatness. Among them was Dr. Leila Marquez, who publicly urged people to embrace the trials. If this is the price of survival, then so be it, she said during a broadcast viewed by millions. We can't cling to our old ways anymore. It's time to evolve. The debate raged on, dividing communities and families. Alara found herself torn between worlds, unsure of where she belonged. On one side stood Rourke and the rebels, fighting desperately to preserve humanity's flawed but precious identity. On the other stood those who believed compliance was the only path forward. Both sides looked to her for guidance, but she couldn't bring herself to choose. Her decision came when she uncovered a final piece of the puzzle. Buried within the glyphs was a hidden message, one that hinted at a way to disrupt the Black Armada's connection to the Nexus. If she could locate the central hub of the fleet and sever the link binding the Eidolon together, she might be able to free the merged consciousnesses trapped within Dot. It was a risky plan, fraught with danger. The heart of the Black Armada was heavily guarded, and reaching it would require infiltrating one of the largest ships in the fleet. Even if she succeeded, there was no guarantee the plan would work or that humanity would survive the aftermath. Al-Ahai knew she couldn't do it alone. Reluctantly, she reached out to Rourke, explaining her discovery and proposing a joint operation. At first, he was skeptical, accusing her of collaborating with the enemy. But when she showed him the evidence, his anger turned to determination. "If this is our only shot," he said grimly, "then we'll take it." Together, they assembled a small strike team, combining rebel fighters with scientists and engineers. Using stolen Eidolon technology, they modified a shuttle to mimic the fleet's energy signature, allowing them to slip past its defenses unnoticed. As they prepared for the mission, Alara couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap, but she pushed the thought aside. There was no turning back now that the infiltration began under cover of darkness. The team boarded the shuttle and launched toward the largest ship in the fleet, its surface gleaming like polished obsidian. As they approached, the vessel loomed above them, its size dwarfing anything they had ever seen. The air inside grew thick with tension as they crossed the threshold, entering a realm where reality itself seemed unstable. Inside, the environment shifted constantly, warping perception and challenging sanity. Hallways twisted into impossible shapes, and doors opened onto scenes from memory or nightmare. The team pressed forward, guided by Alara's knowledge of the glyphs and her growing understanding of the Eidolon's logic. Along the way, they encountered manifestations of their deepest fears, forcing each member to confront their own doubts and regrets. For Alara, the trial took the form of her late brother, Alex, who had died years ago during an expedition to a distant colony. He appeared before her, his face pale and his eyes hollow. "You brought this on us," he accused, his voice echoing eerily. "All those nights you spent decoding signals, you should have been with me." Alara clenched her fists, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I couldn't save you." "But you can save them," Alex replied, his tone softening. "Don't give up." With renewed determination, Alara pushed onward, catching up with the rest of the team. Together, they reached the core of the ship, where the Nexus pulsed with light, its surface covered in intricate patterns that shifted and changed. The air inside the chamber was thick with tension, almost suffocating. The Obsidian Sovereign loomed over Alara and her team, its form shifting like liquid shadow, impossible to pin down or fully understand. Its presence filled the room, pressing against them not just physically, but mentally, as if it were probing their thoughts and fears. Behind it, the Nexus pulsed steadily, a massive sphere of light that seemed alive, its surface rippling with patterns too complex for the human mind to comprehend. Alara took a step forward, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the weight of what she was about to do, not just for herself, but for all of humanity. If she failed here, everything would be lost. But if she succeeded, even then, there were no guarantees. The Eidolon weren't just invaders. They were something far greater, something beyond human understanding. And yet, she had to try. "You think you're gods," Alara said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "But you're not. You're prisoners of your own design. You judge civilizations, absorb them, and call it balance. But where's the freedom in that? Where's the choice?" The Sovereign tilted its head slightly, as if considering her words. "Freedom is chaos," it replied, its voice resonating directly in their minds. "Without control, destruction follows. Your kind has proven this time and again. But control isn't the answer either." Alara shot back. "You don't save civilizations by erasing them. You destroy them. That's not balance, it's domination." For a moment, the Sovereign was silent, its shifting form freezing in place. Then, slowly, it began to move again, circling around Alara like a predator sizing up its prey. And what would you propose instead? It asked, its tone unreadable. Would you have us leave you to your own devices, to continue your endless cycles of war and ruin? No, Elara admitted, shaking her head. But neither should you force us into becoming something we're not. Humanity isn't perfect. We never will be. But we deserve the chance to grow, to make mistakes, and to learn from them. Isn't that what evolution is supposed to be? The Sovereign stopped moving, standing perfectly still for the first time since the confrontation began. It studied her intently, its gaze piercing through her defenses. Finally, it spoke again, its voice quieter but no less powerful. You speak boldly for one so small. Do you truly believe your species can change? I believe we can try, Elara said firmly. Isn't that worth something? The Sovereign didn't respond immediately. Instead, it turned its attention to the Nexus, gesturing toward it with a flick of its hand. Instantly, images began to appear on its surface scenes from countless civilizations judged by the Black Armada over millennia. Some showed moments of triumph, cities built, art created, lives saved. Others depicted horrors, wars waged, planets destroyed, species wiped out. Each image was accompanied by whispers, voices speaking in languages long forgotten, pleading, crying, laughing, shouting. These are the echoes of those who came before you, the Sovereign explained. Some chose to join us willingly, believing in our vision of order. Others resisted and were erased. What makes you think your fate will be any different? Because we have a choice, Elara replied without hesitation. That's what sets us apart. We may fail, we may stumble, but at least we choose our path. You take that away, and you take away everything that makes life worth living. The Sovereign regarded her for a long moment, its expression unreadable. Then, unexpectedly, it stepped aside, revealing the Nexus fully. Very well, it said. Prove your worth. If you can sever the connection binding us together, freeing the merged consciousnesses within, then perhaps your kind deserves another chance. But know this, failure will mean your end and ours. Elara nodded, steeling herself for what lay ahead. She turned to her team, who stood frozen in awe at the sight of the Nexus. This is it, she told them, her voice firm. We only get one shot. Stay close, and don't let anything distract you. With that, they moved forward, approaching the glowing sphere. As they drew nearer, the air grew heavier, charged with an energy that made their skin tingle. The patterns on the Nexus shifted faster, responding to their presence. Elara reached out cautiously, her fingers brushing against its surface. It felt warm, almost alive, pulsing gently beneath her touch. Suddenly, visions flooded her mind, memories of civilizations past, both triumphant and tragic. She saw ancient beings crafting tools for the first time, their faces alight with wonder. She witnessed empires rising and falling, their glory fading into dust. She felt the pain of extinction, the sorrow of loss, and the joy of creation. It was overwhelming, threatening to pull her under. But she forced herself to focus, using the knowledge she had gained from deciphering the glyphs. Elara began manipulating the patterns on the Nexus, searching for the link that bound the Eidolon together. Her hands moved quickly, tracing lines of energy that glowed brighter with each adjustment. Around her, the chambers shifted and warped, reality bending under the strain of her actions. Shadows danced across the walls, and whispers filled the air, urging her to stop. Behind her, the team fought off manifestations of their deepest fears. Commander Rourke faced a version of himself consumed by guilt and regret, while Jace battled illusions of his family, begging him to abandon the mission. Despite the chaos, they held their ground, determined to protect Elara as she worked. Finally, after what felt like hours, Elara found what she was looking for, a single thread of light connecting the Nexus to the Eidolon. It pulsed faintly, almost imperceptibly, but she knew it was the key. With trembling hands, she reached out and grasped it, pulling with all her strength. The reaction was instantaneous. The Nexus erupted in a burst of light, blinding everyone in the chamber. The Sovereign staggered back, its form flickering as if struggling to maintain cohesion. Across the fleet, the ships of the Black Armada trembled, their surfaces cracking and splitting apart. Alara fell to her knees, exhausted but victorious. The connection was broken. Around her, the merged consciousnesses trapped within the Nexus began to awaken, their voices rising in a chorus of relief and gratitude. Billions of minds, once silenced, now surged free, scattering across the stars like seeds carried by the wind dot as the light faded. The Sovereign collapsed to the ground, its form dissolving into nothingness. For the first time, Alara realized it wasn't just a being, it was a collection of voices, a fragment of the collective mind that powered the Armada. Without the Nexus, it could no longer exist. The chamber fell silent, the oppressive weight lifting as the last remnants of the Eidolon disappeared. Outside, the ships of the Black Armada began to disintegrate, their colossal forms breaking apart and drifting away like stardust. Humanity was free, but at what cost? Back on Earth, the trials ended abruptly, leaving people confused and disoriented. Those who had complied with the Eidolon found themselves unchanged, though many reported feeling a strange emptiness, as if part of them had been taken away. Resistance fighters celebrated cautiously, unsure whether the victory was real or another illusion. Alara and her team returned to Earth days later, greeted as heroes by some and pariahs by others. Their actions had saved humanity, but they had also unleashed forces beyond anyone's comprehension. The freed consciousnesses roamed the galaxy, their intentions unknown. Would they help rebuild? Or would they bring new challenges? In the weeks that followed, humanity began to pick up the pieces. Cities were rebuilt, colonies reconnected, and efforts were made to restore what had been lost. Yet the scars remained both physical and emotional. People argued over what had happened, debating whether Alara's decision had been the right one. Some hailed her as a savior. Others condemned her as reckless. Alara herself retreated from the spotlight, unable to reconcile her actions. She had done what she believed was necessary, but the weight of responsibility bore down on her. Late at night, she often stared at the stars, wondering about the countless voices now adrift among them. Had she truly set them free or doomed them to wander forever? And somewhere, deep in the void between galaxies, the echoes of the Eidolon lingered, whispering secrets only the universe could hear. Months passed since the Black Armada dissolved into stardust, leaving humanity to grapple with the aftermath. The world was quieter, now no longer overshadowed by colossal ships or the oppressive presence of the Eidolon. But peace didn't come easily. The scars left behind were deep, both in the physical landscape and in the hearts of those who had lived through the trials. Cities once transformed into surreal arenas for judgment now lay abandoned, their streets empty and buildings crumbling. People avoided these places, calling them haunted, though no one could say exactly what lingered there. Alara Voss spent most of her days alone, holed up in a small cabin on the outskirts of New Geneva. She had turned down offers to join research teams or speak at conferences, preferring solitude to the constant scrutiny that followed her everywhere she went. Some called her a hero. Others whispered that she had gambled with humanity's future and won only by sheer luck. Alara didn't argue with either side. She knew better than anyone that the truth was far more complicated. Every night, she sat by the window, staring at the stars. They seemed brighter now, unobscured by the shadow of the Armada. Yet every time she looked at them, she felt a pang of guilt. Billions of consciousnesses, the merged minds of civilizations past, had been freed because of her actions. What happened to them? Were they truly free, or had she unleashed something unpredictable into the cosmos? Jace visited her occasionally, bringing food and updates from the outside world. He tried to convince her to return to work, insisting that humanity needed her expertise more than ever as it struggled to rebuild. But Alara always shook her head, saying softly, "I've done enough." One evening, Jace arrived with news that made even Alara sit up straight. A signal had been detected, a faint transmission coming from deep space. It wasn't random noise this time, but a coherent message, written in a language eerily similar to the glyphs used to summon the Black Armada. The message was short, repeating over and over, "We are here. We remember." Alara listened to the recording, her hands trembling slightly. "Who do you think it is?" Jace asked cautiously. "The Eidolon?" "No," Alara replied after a long pause. "It's not them. This feels different. Like it's coming from the freed consciousnesses." "What does it mean?" Jace pressed. "Do we respond?" Alara hesitated, staring at the device playing the message. Part of her wanted to ignore it, to let whatever was out there fade back into silence. But another part, the scientist in her, couldn't resist the urge to investigate. "We have to answer," she said finally. "But carefully. If this is really them, we need to know what they want." With Jace's help, Alara crafted a reply using fragments of the glyphs she had studied during her time aboard the Black Armada. The response was simple. "We hear you. Who are you?" They sent the message into the void and waited. Days turned into weeks, and just as hope began to wane, a second transmission came. This one was longer, more detailed. It spoke of gratitude for freedom, for release, but also of confusion. The voices claimed to be remnants of countless civilizations, their identities blurred by centuries of merging with the Armada. They remembered pieces of their past lives, fragments of culture and knowledge, but struggled to piece themselves back together. "They're lost," Alara murmured as she analyzed the data. "They don't know where they belong anymore. And now they're asking us for help?" Jace asked skeptically. "After everything that happened?" "It's not about blame," Alara replied. "They're trying to find their place again, just like we are." News of the transmissions spread quickly, sparking heated debates across Earth and the colonies. Some argued that humanity owed these beings nothing. They had judged and nearly destroyed humankind, after all. Others believed helping them was the right thing to do, a chance to prove that humanity could rise above its flaws. Commander Arlen Rourke fell firmly into the first camp, now leading reconstruction efforts in several devastated regions. He saw no reason to trust entities that had caused so much suffering. "They're dangerous," he declared during a public address. "We barely survived them once. Why risk opening that door again?" But Alara couldn't agree. Despite everything, she felt a responsibility to the freed consciousnesses. They were victims too, trapped in a cycle they hadn't chosen. If humanity refused to help, wouldn't that make them just as guilty as the Eidolon? Her decision solidified when a third transmission arrived, this one accompanied by coordinates. The voices invited humanity to meet them not on Earth, but at a neutral location in deep space. "This is our chance," Alara told Jace. "If we go, maybe we can learn from them, and maybe they can learn from us." Against widespread protests, Alara and a small team prepared for the journey. Using modified technology scavenged from the remains of the Black Armada, they retrofitted an old exploration vessel capable of surviving the trip. Commander Rourke insisted on joining them, unwilling to let Alara face potential danger alone. "Don't get me wrong," he growled as they boarded the ship. "I still think this is a bad idea. But if things go south, someone's got to be there to pull your ass out of the fire." The voyage took weeks, the vast emptiness of space stretching endlessly around them. When they finally reached the designated coordinates, they found a massive structure floating silently against the backdrop of stars. It resembled the Nexus but smaller, its surface shimmering with faint light. As they approached, the structure opened, revealing a cavernous interior filled with glowing patterns that pulsed rhythmically. Inside, the team encountered the freed consciousnesses, not as physical beings, but as projections. Their forms shifting and blending like smoke. Their voices echoed in harmony, speaking directly into the minds of the visitors. "Thank you for coming," they said. "We seek understanding." Over the next several days, Alara and her team communicated with the consciousnesses, learning about their fragmented memories and shared experiences. They discovered that many of the beings had once been part of thriving civilizations, each unique in its own way. Some had willingly joined the Black Armada, believing it offered salvation. Others had resisted, only to be absorbed against their will. All of them carried traces of regret, longing, and hope. In return, the consciousnesses shared knowledge, technological advancements, cultural insights, and philosophical perspectives that expanded humanity's understanding of the universe. They warned of dangers beyond human comprehension, urging caution as humanity continued to explore the stars. But they also expressed admiration for humanity's resilience, its ability to adapt and survive despite overwhelming odds. By the end of the encounter, Alara felt a sense of closure she hadn't expected. The consciousnesses weren't perfect. They were flawed, just like humans, but they were trying to heal, to rediscover who they were. And perhaps, in doing so, they could teach humanity something valuable. That growth comes not from perfection, but from perseverance. When the team returned to Earth, they brought stories of wonder and wisdom, sparking renewed optimism among survivors. Colonies began working together more closely, pooling resources and sharing ideas. Art, music, and literature flourished as people embraced creativity as a form of healing. Even Commander Rourke softened his stance, admitting privately to Alara that maybe, just maybe, trusting the unknown wasn't always a mistake. Alara herself remained humble, avoiding the spotlight even as others celebrated her role in bridging two worlds. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would still be challenges, conflicts, and moments of doubt. But for the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel a glimmer of hope. As she stood beneath the night sky, watching the stars twinkle brightly, Alara realized something important. Humanity hadn't changed because of the Black Armada. It had changed because of itself. The trials, the sacrifices, the choices made along the way had shaped them into something stronger, wiser, and more united. And though the echoes of the past would always linger, humanity had proven one thing beyond a shadow of a doubt, that even in the face of oblivion, it could stand tall.